search for signs of life in Indonesia, while authorities expect the death toll to climb into the thousands. Malcolm Turnbull unleashes on two other former PMs, describing them as bitter, miserable ghosts. 12 months of falling house prices, so why are interest rates set to rise again? And the grand final wash-up as Cooper Cronk and Blake Ferguson take their place in history, both playing with broken bones.
This is NBN News with Paul Lobb.
Good evening. The race is on to find survivors of the devastating earthquake and tsunami in Indonesia, with hundreds still trapped under rubble. More than 1,200 people have now been killed, but the death toll is expected to keep rising.
A drone captures just a snapshot of the destruction. A coastal neighbourhood in central Sulawesi wiped off the map by a 6-metre-high wall of water. The wave also left this fishing boat high and dry, pitched into the main street to become a traffic hazard. Like ants, people manoeuvre around it. But there are many more obstacles ahead of them. We've seen the vision of the tsunami. Now an account of when the ground was actually torn apart by the 7.5 magnitude quake. A man runs towards his home, fearing for his family, praying in his panic. A building collapses as another family tries to find somewhere safe. And this is what the people return to. Roads broken and buckled. Houses and cars swallowed up when the ground shook apart. People are missing, and where and how do they begin to look?
The biggest problem right now, I think, is access. A lot of agencies like ourselves struggling to get to locations that are most affected.
More than 500,000 people live in the disaster zone, and no one is willing to put a figure on the death toll, but it will be in the thousands. This 8-storey hotel in Palu was a landmark building. It now lies in ruin, but there is hope. Voices have been heard from the rubble, and the search goes on. This 15-year-old girl cheated death, trapped under her home, drowning from a leaking pipe. Her mother was killed. More than 1,400 survivors have been brought here to Makassar, which is about 800 kilometres south of the disaster zone. Their injuries are extensive. We know that 38 patients were brought to this particular hospital. Of those, one woman has sadly passed away from extensive head injuries. There's also another woman who was heavily pregnant. She underwent emergency C-section surgery. And the good news, both mum and bub are doing well.
So we have other team, emergency team here.
How many extra staff do you have on to?
So many.
The Indonesia President Joko Widodo is once again on a mercy mission in a country prone to natural disasters. They need the basics: drinking water, food, fuel and electricity, while the authorities prepare for a mass burial in the city Palu in an attempt to stave off the spread of disease in the devastated region.
Malcolm Turnbull has labelled Kevin Rudd and Tony Abbott miserable ghosts driven by hatred for staying in Parliament after they were dumped as Prime Ministers. The current one, Scott Morrison, wishes he could bury all the ghosts of the past as he attempted to shore up support in WA with a multi-billion-dollar offer.
Lakeside views, luxury living and a $2.5 million price tag. Malcolm Turnbull's Canberra penthouse is for sale as the former Prime Minister shakes off the traces of his life in the capital. And in a speech to the young leaders of New York, he stressed it was also important to let go of hatred, which is why he quit Parliament.
There's no way I'm hanging around like an ambitious Kevin Rudd or Tony Abbott. No, well, seriously, these people, what are they being sort of like miserable ghosts?
But he believes the decision to dump him was crazy, saying he was well placed to win the election. Published polls had the government trailing Labor by just 2 points, and Malcolm Turnbull says the coalition's private polling of marginal seats put it ahead by 4.
For reasons that they've not been able to explain. There was an element of the party and in the media that wanted to blow the government up, and they did.
The Prime Minister's determined to bury the ghosts of his predecessors.
I'll leave all the ghosts in the past, I think. That's where ghosts best remain.
Scott Morrison's focus is on trying to shore up ground lost in the leadership chaos. Today his pitch was to soothe Western Australian anger that the lion's share of its goods and services tax collections prop up other states. So the Prime Minister's pledging to legislate a GST floor of 75 cents in every dollar a state collects, plus $7 billion in top-up funds.
It's fair to all states and territories. I mean, a deal does not get better than this.
He wants the law passed by the end of the month. Chris Ullman, NBN News.
Over to Mitch Hughes now, and Mitch, Roosters fans are still celebrating after that big win.
They certainly are. It was an amazing performance. Thanks, Paul. The Roosters certainly didn't get much sleep before they were once again crowing to crowds of their loyal followers at ANZ Stadium. Sunglasses were a must for the premiership winners, who celebrated well into the night before taking the party bus on a victory lap around Bondi.
The red, white and blue army with plenty to crow about as the premiership trophy returns to the Roost. The Roosters faithful flocked to Allianz Stadium to cheer on their champion Chooks. Fans also in full flight. With the biggest cheers for the Chooks who played through pain. Blake Ferguson, who pushed on a broken leg, and Cooper Cronk with his clipped wing.
Oh, good, guys. Thank you very much. All good.
After he was spotted on Oxford Street this morning, still dressed exactly as he left the field, boots and all, Dylan Napa was still hanging on to the moment. For the rest, sunglasses were a must for the after party after the night before. From kick-off to the final whistle, the Roosters were roaring at their spiritual home. As the club hit capacity, outside they were dancing in the streets.
This means the world to us. For any club who says we don't have any fans, just check this out.
Surrounding roads were shut down so the party could continue, fans grabbing any possible vantage point as they waited for their hometown heroes.
Loyal fans have been waiting until 1:30 in the morning for this moment to see their team win the 18th Premiership Trophy back east to Roosters Heartland.
The Premiership Trophy held aloft over Bondi. Alice Mumford.
Cooper Cronk didn't score a point, didn't set up a try, didn't run for a metre, but his performance will still go down in grand final folklore. Cronk played with a 15-centimetre crack in his shoulder blade, but he coached, cajoled and encouraged the Roosters to an emotional victory.
No soul and no support. Their maligned players and fans stood as one last night.
We believe. There's all about that belief within ourselves. Hey, that's all we need. How do you feel? On top of the world. On top of the world.
The Roosters' little master was humble even with the Clive Churchill around his neck. He played half and 5'8", but gave the praise to Cronk.
His presence on the field, no one will ever know how important it was.
After screaming and scheming his side around the park, the one-winged Rooster could barely draw a breath at full time, let alone raise a smile. The doctor by his side, coaching staff making sure his effort was appreciated. It was hard to work out which of this pair was a winner. Even when Cronk was lapping it up, his celebration was somewhat subdued, dulled by the pain of his busted shoulder, until he saw his wife and family. In the dressing rooms, our camera was allowed to film the coach's address. The praise really meant something when Trent Robinson spoke to his inner sanctum.
I've seen guys get injured in games, but I've never seen someone have to deal with an injury after 20 minutes in a prelim final, play out the game, then have to deal with it all week, get injected 4 times this week to play that game, just so we can be standing in this ring tonight winning the competition. That's good luck.
the Bondi boys let loose. To a man, it was Cronk they wanted to honour, and it was revealed a plan was hatched by his teammates on the right-hand side of the field to protect him. Before the game, did the coach say to you, that's one of your jobs, protect Cooper?
I think it was sort of us that did it ourselves, you know, us as a right edge, we sort of, me, Mitch Hughes and Blake Ferguson sat down and talked about it, and we said, we're going to have to look after Coops here. We knew if he was going to play, he was going to be hurt, so there was no way we were going to leave him. Joey and I we went after it, and we really wanted to make sure he was going to be okay.
I told them not to do that, but they did it. They protected me a little bit. More than a little bit. They did a tremendous job themselves playing the way they did.
John Sattler went into broke his jaw in a grand final. You broke his shoulder into a grand final. That's an amazing effort.
No, I think John Sattler's got me covered because he was tough. He was uncompromising. For me, I haven't made a dominant tackle in 15 years, so I was just closing my eyes most of the time.
The magnitude of his effort is best explained by the man who got him on the park.
Cooper had a fractured scapula, and it had displaced as well. So it was in 2 separate pieces.
How long should they keep a player out for?
6 to 8 weeks.
When he came to you, or when you told him about the injury, did you think there was no chance of playing?
Initially, yeah, I thought absolutely no way he was playing. It's an unusual fracture. You often see it with motorbike accidents.
A pain-killing injection on Friday under an ultrasound was the breakthrough that allowed him to play.
Suddenly he was able to lift his arms above his head. He was able to do push-ups, he was able to pass the ball. And he had a bit of a wrestle with the physio and he felt pretty good.
The radiologist came to the ground and repeated the procedure last night.
30 minutes before he ran out, we gave him the injection. He managed to do his warm-up here, ran out.